Blog Talk Radio. Hi, and welcome to Mindshifters Radio with Dr. Michael Ryce, the Forgiveness Doctor. And we are here on Friday already. This week has flown by. And so I'm not real sure if we're going to continue with the codependence talk. We've gone for 5 days on that, and it's been awesome. The call-in number is 646-200-4169. Or you can go into the chat room, or you can email me at Jeanie, Jeanie, at whyagain.com. And here's Dr. Michael Ryce.
Good morning, if you're in a morning zone, or an afternoon, if you're in an afternoon time zone. And if you don't believe in time, we're glad you're here. And it's a delight to be able to share this hour with you and support you in the process. And, of course, in supporting you, we get to support ourselves. We're all in this together. Of learning, in particular, the ancient Aramaic idea of forgiveness. The core of our work that we'll share today is how you start to change the internal dynamics that result in what seem to be external circumstances. Forgiveness in the ancient Aramaic is something that you apply to your own mind, not to somebody else who you think has offended you. And so we're here this morning. Let's see, we've got David on the line. Good morning, David. And Dr. Tim and Terry. Delight to have you all with us this morning.
Good morning.
Anything exciting to share?
Good morning.
Good morning. Well, our show this morning will move in the direction, depending on questions. Let me check with Jeanie and see if there are any comments in the chat room or any hands up. No hands up, no questions. David, Terry, Tim, do any of you bring anything to the table this morning that we want to take a look at?
David, are you going? Go ahead, David.
Go ahead, Tim. Go ahead, Tim.
Well, I just was struck by yesterday. I had a person who, despite all of the best efforts to describe how the system works and how 7 people watching one accident can all come away with a different internal response, she did not want to give up the idea that other people and her relationship with them is what caused her emotions. And I just had to bring that up as a point that there are times when people, no matter how much you describe it to them or give them real-life examples that they can look at for themselves, they want to come away and stay stuck in the blame game.
Yes, actually, I was looking at starting off, and you're right on track with my thinking this morning, at the next level as we move into a codependent state and what that would look like. And, move out of the codependent state into an interdependent state. Do I wish to heal myself? If I really am not interested in healing myself, then I'll stay stuck in my defenses. I'll stay stuck in my story. In the early days at Heartland, we had a music director, a fellow named Joel Goldstein. Maybe we'll see if we can get his piece of music and play it at some point. And the song was, "Stuck in my story, my pain and my glory." And if we refuse to be responsible for what's going on inside of us, then our mind will show us that it's all everybody else's fault. And, that story is a tough one, especially if it's been going on for generations and generations. And I think I need the defenses that I believe keep me safe. But, anyone who walks around with defensives, notice how often unsafety has shown up at your door. Because in your defenses, you literally set up an energetic invitation for somebody to come and challenge exactly what it is you're defending against. Powerful line in the Course in Miracles, one of the early lessons in the Course. In my defenselessness, my power and safety lie. And so instead of sitting around licking my wounds, removing love from you. That is, I think I'm going to get hurt if I have love in your presence, so I remove it and I get ripped off for it. I'm the one who gets to experience the lack of love. And so my defenses just keep me stuck in my story. And, you know, Tim, I think we talked about this the other day, and it's an example I use often when it comes across this point. Until somebody has the brain cells, you know, there's that old story that says you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. But you can make them thirsty. And the way to make them thirsty is by helping them to build the brain cells. And the example I like to use is the dog comes in the room where there's a plate on the floor with an ounce of gold, and there's a plate on the floor with an ounce of hamburger. And the dog, of course, could choose the gold. But we know that there's no dog on the planet that's going to come in and choose the piece of gold. Now, if someone were to train it, if someone were to build the brain cells, help the dog to build the brain cells, for the value of the ounce of gold, gee, I can buy 500 pounds of hamburger, then no dog in the world would pick the hamburger. But because they don't have the brain cells, there's only one choice. And so, you know, to me, it's one of the reasons why we do this, and we try to flood the world as much as we can with these ideas, is to assist people in building the brain cells. And finally people go, oh, I see. Oh, you mean I'm a creator? I create these results? You mean this is about me? And, of course, then the click happens. So we'll just hold the space that whoever that was hangs around long enough to make that shift and to let go of the vengeance game and the blame game. And, of course, people say, well, yeah, but they deserve my blame. They deserve my rage. It's like, okay, you might be right. What they did was so terrible. They might. But the question is, do you deserve it? Because you get the original. They just get the carbon copy. So, yeah, it's a process to get to learn that, gee, I'm the one who's been there every time.
Well, and the critical thing that I think for all of us who are working with this and trying to support others in working with it is to be able to move to just holding the space of love rather than trying to push or force or coerce somebody into seeing it the way I see it. And that's, you know, one of the great gifts from any good teacher that I've had in the field of psychology, and of course from you, Michael, is that idea that all I can do is present and then hold a space of love for them, and when they're ready, they'll get it, and if they're never ready, they won't get it, but it's all going to be okay anyway in ways that my tiny little logical mind can't sort out, and that allows me to stay in that space of love and just smile and send love and say, okay, if that's the way you have to look at it for now, then that's the way it has to be.
Yeah, just by presenting it, and I've learned over the years in teaching that my job is to present it, not to make sure. The minute I get tied up in that, I'm back in my power person stuff. You know, our conversation the last several days has been about codependence, and the power person being that person who had more power over our lives at some point than we had. And if my power person just sat on top of me and forced me and forced me and forced me and forced me, then I'll want to sit on top of somebody and force them and force them and force them. And if they don't get it, I'll go into what my power person did when I didn't get it. So if my power person raged at me when I didn't get it, if my power person raged at me when I wasn't smart enough, if my power person raged at me when I didn't say the right thing, or when I looked at them the wrong way, then here I'll sit a half a century later or more, and when somebody doesn't get it, I'll go into the same thing my power person went into. I'll do exactly that behavior because my mind has goals based on my relationship with my power person. And in that particular case, it would be something like perhaps the goal to win or to control or to assure that they get it so that I feel good enough about me, all of that, rather than coming from being and just providing the information and as you say, holding the space. That's so powerful. And, you know, in the power person dynamic that runs so deep, we've mentioned it throughout the last several days, but I think this is a good time to mention it again because it's so relevant that if we're functioning out of the dynamics that come from the power person, there are only 3 behaviors possible. And the first behavior is that I'll do whatever I did to get along with my power person when I'm not stressed. So I meet somebody that I want to share this work with, and with my power person I was pleasant and smiley, and so what I'll do is I'll be pleasant and smiley as I present it to them. But if my goal is about some hangover from my power person, if I'm good enough, one of those pseudo-solutions we've talked about in the last few days, so let's imagine a scenario where I hold from my power person days that if I could just get it right, then I would be good enough, and then my power person would approve of me. I present this to somebody, and they say, "Oh, that's crazy," and I hold the goal that I want them to get it, because getting it means I'm good enough. In my mind, if that's my power person dynamic, I want it to fulfill the needs of my power person and be good enough. Then if what my power person did, when I didn't get it, for instance, if I wasn't fast enough at learning something and I got labeled stupid, then probably the power person was in a fit of rage when I didn't get it. And on an energetic level, just like a tuning fork, I would absorb that rage from my power person in there. It sits in my tissue structure around the goal of needing to be good enough and get it. And so if the person I'm in front of isn't getting it, they're violating a goal that I held from my hangover from my power person, a goal for them. And if they're not fulfilling my goal, my stress goes up. When my stress starts to go up, if I'm living out of this carbon-based memory and power person dynamic, then I'll shift out of what I did to get along. In other words, I won't be the smiley teacher, and I can't tell you how many teachers I've watched over the years who preach all kinds of wonderful things and then go into a fit of rage. I remember one man who was actually an actual preacher who preached all this stuff about love, and he had all the right garments and all the right, and he was married and he had children. And I remember watching him do a service one day, and he's preaching about love, and he's talking about love, and he's got his garments on, and he's looking very priestly. And his child comes up to where he's preaching, and is doing, I don't even remember what they did, but something that didn't please the preacher. And to watch the viciousness with which he turned around right there in the church service where he's talking about love and speaks to his child. Now, I know that that's exactly how his power person spoke to him. And the child was violating a goal. You're supposed to sit and be a good little boy while I do my preaching. And so child comes up, with whatever need the child has and clicks into that goal. And all of a sudden, next level of stress, this child isn't fulfilling my goal. And so, that turnaround that's sitting in church and I'm going to pinch you, I'm going to twist your arm, I'm going to, I'm a loving parent talking about love as the preacher, but, and it's all based on these power person dynamics. So when the stress starts to go up, the next level of behavior happens, and that is whatever I did to resist and survive with my power person. And then, if I've cranked up the heat with that person and I'm really in their face and you better get it, and they don't, the next level of stress goes up. Now I'll do what my power person did to me that I hated the most. And so I may turn, if what my power person did when I didn't get it was rage on me, so I'll turn and rage on them. And after I'll say, well, I'm never going to do that again. But these power person dynamics are hidden under the veil of the dissociated mind. And that's why the forgiveness process becomes so important, because what the Aramaic forgiveness process does, as opposed to letting somebody else off the hook because I'm upset, because I have pain, is the forgiveness process is about going inside yourself, collapsing the dissociated mind in its projections, and touching into the pain, the trauma, the fear, the rage, whatever it was, that came from the dynamic with the power person. And once I can do that and hold love present, then the next level of my healing occurs. and I get to do a different game in my life. So we come through the relationship issues with the power person, and we believe that fulfilling the goals of the power person is survival itself. And through that survival goal, we'll distort. There's a great line in the Course in Miracles that says, you must understand the distorting power of the way you want it to be. So if I want it to be a certain way, I can distort everything and in the name of love attack and lay somebody bare. So anything I look at will be distorted because I'm looking at it through my own dissociated mind's dynamics. And, you know, they say money runs the world. Money doesn't run the world. Guess what runs the world? This dynamic that we're talking about right now. And as opposed to getting this person to fulfill my goal for them, the only solution is exactly the opposite, and that is to cancel my goal. And as I cancel my goal, that's what collapses the dissociated mind and gives me a chance to see the place in me where that hostile, fearful, whatever the reaction is hidden. So that's the power of us being willing to go there and do the work. And, of course, each of us is teaching what we need to learn. I love what Richard Bach says. We teach best that which we most need to learn. So any day you want to see what I need to learn, just listen. And here it is. This is what we're doing. So, Jeannie, any comments in the chat room? Any questions?
There was just one person who had not been part of the last few days' show, and they weren't real sure what a power person was. So I just gave them a very quick update and told them they could go back and look at the archives, but that it was someone who at some point in your life had more control over you than you had, usually a parent, and that your survival depended on it. So I just kind of explained that, and they said they thought they understood.
Yeah, and if that person isn't functioning out of love. Now, if you have a parent that's functioning out of love, then that parent is not a power person at that point. It's only when the parent, you know, our original essence, human life is love. If you hold a newborn, you know what human life is. And so if we have a caretaker, someone who has control over our lives, that isn't functioning as love, then, and usually it's a parent, so we genetically hold the same energies and the same frequencies as that power person because we got it through our genetics. It's just like two tuning forks. And if that parent isn't functioning out of love or that caretaker, then whatever frequencies they're putting out will resonate the same in us. Whatever is pouring out of their lips, why you stupid, you'll never, whatever all that stuff is. Then later when we stand in front of somebody, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years later, we stand in front of somebody and they're not getting it, we'll do exactly. When we become ultra-stressed, we'll do exactly what we hated that our power person did to us. And again, I can't emphasize too much. The opposite, instead of trying to force them to fulfill our need and our goal so that we can play out the, I'm going to survive with my power person. And this comes down to, this is really is a belief in survival. The solution lies in, I'm going to cancel my goal. I'm going to collapse my projection. I'm going to crack my dissociated mind, and then I can go right back to what didn't belong in my field, in my genetics, or my power person's genetics in the first place. And when I can bring love to that, the active presence of love dissolves whatever that is. No big psychological dynamic, no big thing to figure out. None of the pseudo-solutions fit here. It's just bring the active presence of love. And, of course, that's the power of community, because if I have an issue that I really believe in, I mean, it's been going on in my bloodline for 1,000 generations, it's going to be really tough to process myself. And we define in this work, process work, as the ability to keep love conscious, active, and present when something less than love comes out. And so the power of community, if you want to go far, go together, that old African proverb. If you want to go quickly, go alone. So when we are in community, if I'm so deeply lost in the belief that this is going to cost my life, and I'm willing to cancel the goal, but I can't quite get to the point where I can hold love present, you become my support. Thank you, brother, sister. And together we start to move and heal. Jeannie's got a comment for us.
The same person just came back with, it's their default setting. And I said, yeah, exactly. And what we need to do is change our default setting.
Yeah, exactly. The mind will always default to those three behaviors. And it depends on stress. No stress, whatever we did to get along with our power person. Default when stress starts to build is whatever we did to resist and survive with our power person. Default setting when we become ultra stressed. I'm going to do whatever my power person did to me that I hated the most. And, you know, the power of community, the power of support, the Mind Shifter support groups are just awesome. In the work that people do together, it always just delights and amazes me how the inner intelligence of each person that is exposed to this work takes it, runs with it, and teaches me so much. I am so blessed. Our call-in number, if you have a question, a comment, something to share about your process, please give us a call. The number is 646-200-4169. If you're new to the show and you don't have the forgiveness tool as yet, please go to the website, www.whyagain.com, www.whyagain.com. On the right-hand side, there's a link that says Download Worksheets. The first two downloads there are the instructions for the forgiveness process and the worksheet process for Aramaic forgiveness. Aramaic forgiveness has hardly or probably has not been seen on the planet for almost 2,000 years. We were sold a Trojan horse, a Greek idea of, I have something terrible and painful happening inside of me. It must be your fault, but I'll forgive you. I'll let you off the hook. The goal of forgiveness from the Aramaic is not to be letting other people off the hook because you think they're responsible for what's happening in you, but it's how you go inside of you and begin to change you. And that is the biggest and the key step to moving into interdependence, is to be willing to cancel the goal that keeps you in the power person dynamics and be freed from those dynamics. And by the way, when you do that, you free your power person from those dynamics. You know, a lot of people want to blame their power person. It was, well, my father, my mother. It's like, excuse me. You know, your father's been gone for 20 years. What are you talking about, your father? This is you. This is your dynamic. This is inside of you. This all, well, yeah, but excuse me. They've been gone for 20 years. What are you talking about? This is about you. And so one of the major steps to interdependence is to cancel the goal that you hold for the object of attention on which you are now pouring your power person dynamics. Having them fulfill your goals will never give you security and will not support your survival. The desire to avoid the pain we have stored around that particular issue is what has us clinging to the goal that keeps us thinking the problem's outside of us. Security does not come from everybody in the world kowtowing to and fulfilling your goals. Security comes when you function, instead of out of power person dynamics, out of being. And the people who experience a free-floating anxiety, that free-floating anxiety that most people live out of, you know, who was it that wrote about lives of quiet, most men live lives of quiet desperation. And those feelings come from unconscious thoughts that need to be forgiven. And whoever clashes up against those thoughts, our stress will go up. Major step into interdependence is canceling the need for the goal you have for them so that you get to look inside your own dissociated mind. Many people say when I say, well, why did you do that? I say, well, I just felt like it. It's like, stop doing what you feel by doing. Stop being moved by your own unconscious dynamics. Select a set of principles you choose to live by. You know, there's a commitment that we do, and it's on the website, from the Healing Through Relationships workshop. You've probably heard us talk about it before. We've read it several times on the air, but it starts out, I promise to trust you enough to tell you the truth and treat you lovingly, gently, and with respect. Pick a set of principles you choose to live by, then stop doing what you feel like doing, because feelings come from thoughts, and if thoughts are unconscious, then we'll do crazy things. We'll do the same crazy things our power person did. Jeannie, you've got a comment or a question for us?
There's just some conversation going on in the chat room, which is really awesome. There's one person who has been doing work, I believe, with Sam, and says that they were, hold on, my screen scrolls just about the time I get ready to read it. Says, I've been in therapy. Wait, let's go further up. My apologies. This is some of the most powerful stuff that I've learned. 14 years in traditional therapy couldn't do what 2 years in this has done. And then there's some other conversation about the default and the power person thing, that must be why some people are all okay until everything's going, as long as everything's going their way, and trouble starts when it does not. And then another one came back and said, I've been in therapy my entire life, it seems. One has to remember the goal of traditional therapy is not healing, it's client functionality and case management. And I told them that sometimes we think that we have it all, and then the next layer comes up, and willingness to go through it's an important key. And then I went on to say that the same is true in most medical doctors too, not all, but that if the patient actually heals, then what will the doctors do? And that I was just mentioning that Dr. Andraki is the one who brought us to Las Vegas and Pahrump, and he's one of the first ones I've ever seen that's actually writing scripts for his patients to do worksheets, to attend the Mind Shifter support groups, and he's pushing it for his patients to heal. He says, he can write prescriptions all day long, and that's not going to heal them. It might suppress symptoms and move them around till they can manage what's really going on, but he said to do the ultimate healing, they've got to do their inner work, and accolades to him for being willing to step out for that. And then someone mentioned that they had seen that we were going to do spring cleaning at the hot springs to do a major cleaning. So anyway, you might want to address the intensive and then speak some on yours and Dr. Andraki's conversation next week.
Sure, great idea. Yeah, we'll be doing spring cleaning at the hot springs in the spring. There we are. We're really on it there. We're springing forward. But, we're going to be doing a 2-day mini-intensive here at Tacoma Delight Hot Springs in Tacoma, California, about an hour and a half west of Las Vegas, east of Las Vegas, over the California line. And that will be based on the workshops, Why Is This Happening to Me Again, Empowered to Heal, and Communication. Did you hear what I think I said? We'll get into mind shifters and still point breathing if you're interested in doing that and you're in this area, or you want to do a quick fly into Las Vegas. Come on in and share that weekend with us. That'll be the 21st and 22nd. Mark your calendars for next Wednesday, because next Wednesday is going to be an awesome show. We're going to be talking with Dr. Andraki, and here's a man. Actually, we had a discussion after a workshop last night and out in Pahrump, and several of his patients were at the workshop, at the whole series, and one of them was just like this guy I've never seen it before. He wants us to heal. It's like he doesn't want us as patients. He's not trying to keep us as patients. He really wants us to heal. And, yeah, it's awesome when we do that and when we move in that direction. So please, next Wednesday, our show will be a co-host between myself and Jeannie and Dr. Andraki. And so we'll be doing a discussion about medicine, forgiveness, and healing. And we'll hear what Dr. Andraki has to say. And Dr. Andraki is a physician that's been in practice for 30-plus years, and I know through him I've met several of his peers. The medical center that we've been working at out in Pahrump, the fellow who owns that center, when I first met him through Dr. Andraki, in a private conversation, just said that Dr. Andraki was one of the most awesome physicians that he's ever known. So we're going to have an awesome show next Wednesday, and Jeannie has another comment or question for us.
One of the people in the chat room was just talking about that, they were doing their work and they could see, benefits in it, and they were trying really challengingly to get their partner to do it, and they were very resistant in it. So I told them that I would get you to address what they could expect for them to continue doing their work, but what could happen and what to look for.
Okay, well, it can be difficult because when you're asking somebody to do their work, what you're asking them to do is to stare right straight in the face, perhaps, of a raging, abusive, violent, vicious power person. Because, even though that person may be dead for your partner, they're not dead inside of them. The whole image and the dynamics of that live within them. And so be gentle. And, there's that, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, but you can make him thirsty. and you make him thirsty by shifting the dynamics and holding the space. And what you'll find is that if your partner won't do their work and you're frustrated about it, then you need to start looking at the part of you that doesn't want to do your work and has frustration about it. And so if I have a partner who won't do their work, and I'm in anger or rage or fear or whatever, my inclination is, my feeling is, well, I should just force them, I should just puke on them. And if that's what you do in that situation, then what I know is that your power person, when the stress was up and the chips were down, forced you and puked on you. And that's the third level of behavior of the non-being mind. And so you're going to find that when it comes to healing, the guidance that will actually bring healing will feel wrong. It will feel backward. Because if we're stuck in projection, the mind that's telling you that they need to change has got it all backward. If I'm in upset because they won't change, I have upset to heal in me. That's my work. Now, and I talked a few minutes ago about be careful about doing what you feel like doing. Stop doing what you feel like doing. Select a set of principles and choose to live by it, and then handle whatever you need to handle in your own mind so you can actually live by those higher principles. That's the gateway, and that's the pathway to personal power. But when you first start doing that, your mind will guide you, well, if I just push a little harder on them. Well, that's what your power person did to you, right? Pushed a little harder. And so the guidance will not feel right according to your unconscious dynamics, but your feelings come from unconscious thoughts based in power person dynamics if you go into any form of hostility or fear. And so as you start to do your work, there are 4 things over the years that I've seen, and, some of it's unfortunate, but that's just the way it works. The 4 things that I've seen: when you get 2 people who come together out of matching bags of garbage, they establish a way of functioning. And, the way of functioning might be hostility, fear, kiss and make up and have fun. Hostility, fear, kiss and make up and have fun. Hostility, fear, kiss and make up and have fun. And if you decide to do your work and you drop the hostility or fear, then you've got a partner who says, well, wait a minute, why aren't we doing hostility, fear, kissing, making up, and having fun? Well, what's wrong with this picture? You better get back where you need to be. So the 4 things that happen when one partner says, I'm going to do my work, I'm going to clean up my hostility and fear-based mind and function out of a human mind, out of love. Then the first response that we see people having is, wow, that looks really great on you. I love it, and I want some. Man, I see that's really working for you. Awesome. That's the first response. Second response is, I can see you've got something that's really working well for you. It looks good on you. I can see you're doing really better, and I'm so delighted for you. I'll support you, but I'm not really interested. The third dynamic is, I am really peeved that you won't play the hostility, fear, puke on each other, kiss and make up and have fun game with me anymore, and so I'm going to crank up the heat. I'm going to intensify my hostility and fear to try to get you back in the pattern that I'm used to having you in, because that's what our relationship and our lives are made of, and the person who's stuck in that doesn't know there's something higher possible. And then the fourth dynamic that we see happen when one partner starts to do their work is the second partner disappears. It's like, I'm out of here. There's just no resonance left. I have no attraction. I need to go find somebody that I can do hostility, fear, fight, kiss and make up and have fun. And that's locked into the carbon-based memory system. So they're the 4 things that, in my experience, Tim, Terry, David, do you have any other things to share on what you see happen in relationships when one partner decides to change the internal dynamic?
I got some insights, Michael.
Share with us, Terry.
Well, I've been working with this concept through the night and into the morning, so I'm delighted that the dialogue moved right into this discussion. And I came up with a couple of insights around if I'm perceiving someone as having their 9 bits full, or they're not getting it, what I'm trying to get across to them, then that is a dissociation of my mind, and it's a definite marker for me that my 9 bits are full in relation to some aspect of this situation, and I'm not getting it at some level. So that it's like, there it is. It's right there. It's like a live holographic worksheet experience, the potential.
Right.
And as you were relaying the aspects of the interactions with people you share it with, I was looking at those 4 behaviors, and so if I am witnessing that behavior, then there's that aspect of me that is hidden and I'm dissociated in, and I projected it out onto them in order for me not to look at it.
Yes.
So I'm going to be doing that same behavior that I'm witnessing, but I'm going to be blaming it or projecting it onto them. So it all comes back to total responsibility. Hey, this is my life.
Terry, do you mean it's all about me?
Yeah.
When I'm in upset, it's all mine? Is that what you're trying to tell me? Terry, what kind of a thing is that to say to me?
It's all about me. It's not about you.
Yeah, and it's awesome how we come together with our matching bags of garbage, and then when we decide to shift out of codependent relationship, you better fulfill my goals for you, into interdependent relationship. Can I hold the space for you? Awesome difference. Awesome. Thanks. So good insight, Terry. Glad to be on the team. Glad to have you on ours. For those who don't know Terry, Terry is the artiste in residence, part-time at this point at Heartland, and part-time in Asheville, North Carolina, and also the head of our vision team for building community at Heartland and the buildings that we're looking at. And Terry just put together a thing where we've acquired another 50 acres of land at Heartland, and we're building conscious community, alternative building dynamics, waste treatment, power dynamics, all of it. We're doing a holistically oriented community based in the principles. And, of course, based in the principles means lots of process happens. Jeannie's got a question or a comment for us from the chat room. Just one second.
Okay. As far as relationships go, and I brought out in the chat room that this goes for any relationship. It could be business, family, parents, children, coworkers, or the significant other. So when we talk about being in a relationship, the same dynamics work in all of them. And the person that was talking about their partner not doing it said, luckily, she's very supportive of me and just not interested in looking at her own. And I hope that if I continue to do the work, she will see the benefit. I just wanted to share again, and I've shared this a couple times in the past week, but there was a gentleman who his marriage was actually about to break up. And he came to the Healing Through Relationships workshop, and he took the commitment back with him. And he called a couple weeks later, and he said, we're back on track. Everything's great. He said, I've been reading the commitment to her every morning. And it was like, oh, that's fabulous. Is she reading it back to you? And he goes, what do you mean? She doesn't know I'm doing this. So he was like going in the bathroom or something and reading it to her. She didn't even have a clue about it. But just because he was putting out the energy of doing that and sending that love towards her, then their whole relationship changed, and she wasn't even a participant in what he was doing. So that's always a possibility there. And then the conversation also talked about no resonance there and the person leaving. And I said, that may happen, and there may also be a time when the person that's actually doing their work may choose to say, I love you, and you're wanting to play in this game, and I'm wanting to play in this other game, and we're not going in the same direction, and I love you and bless you, but I'm going on my way. And that person may be the one that chooses to leave the relationship. But if you do that, you have to keep doing your work, or you're going to create the same thing again in your life. And so then someone came back that they had always been a runner, and so maybe you'll address that about leaving, and that's a big one, but how we can continue doing our stuff so that we don't take it with us and do it again.
Yes, the leaving issue is the biggie, and if you look back when the stress is up and the chips were down, if your issue is leaving, then what your power person did when the stress was up and the chips were down was they left. And so the first piece of work to do is the first step into interdependence is to be willing to forgive, collapse the guidance from your mind that has you leaving, and select a different option. I'm here, one of the lines in the commitment is, I'm here for you and with you, keeping communication open and keeping love conscious, active, and present as we heal, celebrate life, and grow together. And if I can't do that, if my mind says, well, this is just it, I'm out of here, then there's my next piece of work. You've got to, if you're going to really, truly heal, you've got to take the leaving option off the plate. That one's got to go. And I've watched so many people who, their threat is, if you won't do what I want you to do, then I'm going to leave you. If you're playing that game, notice what your power person did. And you don't have to tell me any more than when you become ultra-stressed, you threaten to leave. What your power person did was either threaten to leave or they actually left. And, Jeannie's just saying from the other room that, and perhaps not physically. Yeah, the power person or leaving doesn't necessarily have to do with physical departure, although that's usually the case. Oftentimes it can just be, I'm out of here. I'm going to disassociate totally from my life. What I'm doing is I'm living my life at work. And when I come home, I bring work home in my head. I'm not really here. I'm at work. I'm not here with you. And if your punishment thought with your partner is, I need to leave, then start to look into that power person dynamic and clean it up. So the first step into interdependence from codependence is a willingness to collapse the guidance system that has you do something based in hostility or fear. And that's called forgiveness. That's the first step. Next step is to recognize that perception takes its direction from purpose. If you lived with a power person that was always in blame, then one of the major purposes you hold for relationship is to find somebody to blame. That's just an inherited and an environmentally reinforced way of living, or I actually should say a way of not living. So if you need somebody to blame, then notice that your mind will always make up an image of somebody to blame. And it might even be yourself. If your power person was always blaming you, then you might be down on yourself and you might be about to blame yourself. So letting go of blame and then recognizing that the purpose of your body-mind unit is to be a servant. It is not, with all of its contents of hostility, fear, rage, grief, pain, drama, trauma, its purpose is not to keep you locked in that. That stuff is absolutely not required. It is absolutely unnecessary. But if it's in there, it'll play out. Your job is, again, go back to the first step, and that is forgive. And then to recognize, second step into interdependence, is to recognize that the purpose of your body-mind unit is to give you, love, a place to live, to embody your being. It is not to bind you, who are designed to be the master, to the servant filled with hostility and fear. And so the next step is to make real the purpose of your form. The purpose of a human form is to embody a human life. It is not to find somebody to blame. And so you have to shift the purpose of every relationship. And when you do that, first step, forgiveness. Second step, make real and understand the purpose of your body, and that is to embody being. Next step into interdependence is to recognize that the purpose of your relationship is to show you truth and to support you in healing. Most of us have been taught a hypnotic lie about the world. They're separate people, and they're the problem. If you recognize that your relationships will only bring up in you whatever you need to heal, then the next step into interdependence is to shift the purpose of those relationships and be willing to recognize that if they show you some form of trauma or drama or pain, how will you know that they're doing that? Because you'll feel some form of drama or pain. If the pattern of your power person was to blame you, then you'll be blaming someone else. Stop. Stop the blame game. Recognize and own, my relationships are here to show me what it is that I haven't dealt with yet. And so I get the opportunity when I shift the purpose of my relationships when I shift the purpose first of my body, then of my relationships, and that is to support me in seeing what I'm blocked in, what I've blocked out of my mind, and what runs me when the stress is up and the chips are down. Then when I accept that the purpose of my relationships is that, not to make sure that I never have to feel that. Remember, one of the pseudo-solutions of the non-being mind was, if I could just control you, then I'd never have to feel my pain. You'd never get near it, and I'd never have to feel it. Well, that's a total codependent dynamic. So shifting the purpose of your relationships to one of supporting you in seeing the truth, to see what you're holding, be responsible for it, and heal, that's the next step into interdependent relationship. The following step would be that of taking responsibility. As long as I hold one codependent, one painful reality in my mind that I'm willing to be responsible for, then I'm going to stay in codependence. So when I'm willing to take responsibility, and be careful, because the non-being mind has a cheap copy of responsibility. And the non-being mind's cheap copy of responsibility is, you mean it's my fault? You mean I'm the guilty party? You mean I'm to blame? I'm the one who's wrong? No, when I ask you to take responsibility for the crazy things that are happening in your life, notice that in that word there's nothing about guilt, fault, blame, bad, wrong. It's just you're there. You're part of it. You're a creator. This is your life. And when you take responsibility, you get to gently open the dissociated part of your mind with which you create the crazy things that happen. And as you do that, you get to heal them. It's awesome. It's fun. So how do you tell if there's anything you haven't yet taken responsibility for? Can anybody kick you in the limitation? Then you know that there's something you're still not being responsible for in your own form. So you end codependency when you feel good about crossing everybody else's name off your list as the ones to blame and put your own name in there. And you begin to build relationship out of original being, because you get to heal original resentment when you do that. And, of course, to do that, you've got to wake up to being. And so build relationship out of original being rather than original resentment, and things move forward. And there's a cute story that I always share in the Codependent Workshop, and I'd like to share it with you now. I think it's kind of a fun story. And it's a story about codependence called Happy Anniversary. Ray was in trouble. He forgot his wedding anniversary. His wife, Kathy, was really angry. She told him, tomorrow morning, I expect to find a gift in the driveway that goes from 0 to 200 in less than 6 seconds, and it better be there. The next morning, Ray got up early and left for work. When his wife, Kathy, woke up, she looked out the window, and sure enough, there was a wrapped but rather small gift box in the middle of the driveway. Confused, Kathy put on her robe, ran out to the driveway, brought the box back in. When she opened it, there she found a brand-new bathroom scale. Ray has been missing since Friday. And that's kind of the story of codependence. And what we're looking to do is to support you in living a life
out of being, living a life in the true active presence of love, and supporting that all around you. Terry, David, Kim, Jeannie, any questions or comments in the chat room? Any calls? Here's Jeannie. She's got one for us.
It was just kind of a comment. One person in the chat room was willing to share what they were going through, and I thanked her for being able to do that, because it opened up for the other people in the chat room to understand what matching bags of garbage is, and that it's not the same thing. She said that her thing about leaving was because she always had to run when her father was abusive. And so I said her fearful bag matched his angry bag. So they were matching bags. It wasn't that they were the same. He was holding anger, so he needed people to do something, either out of fear or whatever, to bring up his anger to give him the opportunity to heal it, but he just didn't know that was an option, and so he would get angrier. And then she held fear, so she needed somebody to be angry or act a certain way in order to bring up her fear to give her the opportunity to heal it. And now that she has the tools, she is working through that. And so that's phenomenal to be able to do that instead of running and then bringing somebody else up to bring up your fear or your anger or whatever.
Right on track. And, you know, when we link into non-being, the root of the false self is the energetic trauma absorbed from the power person, passed on, again, if it was a parent, genetically from the power person, and then energetically absorbed from the power person who was not in being during any interaction. And so what we'll tend to do is look out through that dynamic in us until it's resolved, and we'll find someone who has the matching bag of garbage. That was what Jeannie was just talking about, was relationships based in matching bags of garbage. So if I need to heal my terror, fear, grief, loss of being, and pain because my power person functioned out of rage, then I'll tend to select somebody who knows how to rage. And they have the bag of garbage that matches mine in that they get to rage and they get to look at their unconscious dynamic should they choose to move into interdependent relationship. They get to look at their unconscious dynamic when I go into my fear. And so it's the perfect matching bag of garbage. And so when we give up that non-being dynamic and step back into true being, into love, we get to play a whole different game. And remember that by definition, a power person was not in being during an interaction. And each traumatic interaction with that power person sets into the mind a series of false trauma-based ideas that we identify with and then we feel from. So when somebody says, well, I don't like how I feel when I'm with you, what I'm really saying is I'm projecting what I've got inside of me into my relationship with you. And I pretend it's you I don't like. Gee, yesterday you were the most awesome, wonderful, loving person in the world, and now I say I don't like you because I don't like how I feel? What I'm feeling is the effect of my own power person dynamic. And life's purpose is to bring to you those dynamics and show you how to heal them. When one of these dynamics comes up in your mind, you know, there's a great an acronym for fear, false evidence appearing real. When that fear comes up or when that rage comes up, it seems like it's permanent. This is it. This is life. This is my relationship with this person, and it's all about them. But when I recognize that this is just a frequency in my own carbon-based memory system, and that I can go in and forgive it, then rather than being endless, rather than being permanent, it becomes something that's a transient energy that I, because I've been willing to develop the skills, am willing to let go of and willing to move out of. And be aware that the false self, you know, that's made out of this fear, rage, trauma game needs that trauma to carry on. And so when it comes up, be careful you don't fall into the dynamic of it just wants to feed. It's a trauma-based self. It's not who you are. Don't feed it. Starve it. You know, there's that story about the Native American boy that goes to the elder in the tribe and says, I've just discovered that I have a black dog inside of me and a white dog inside of me, and they fight, and I don't know which one is going to win. And the elder of the tribe says, I can tell you which one will win. And he says, well, which one will it be, the boy says. And the elder says, it'll be the white dog. And he says, well, why? How do you know that? He said, because that's the one you'll feed. If you feed the black dog, if you feed the hostility and fear-based non-being self, if you allow it when it comes up to just run its mouth and puke all over you and everybody else, then that will grow. That will expand because your focus is there. When it comes up and wants to grab you by the face, if you're willing to collapse it through forgiveness, then it will collapse. It will begin to weaken. Because you don't feed it, it will dissipate and begin to disappear. It is not permanent. There is no permanence. There is no substance to it. It is all just an illusory flash in the pan. But if it runs your life, it seems like it's everything. You know, one of my favorite lines from the Course in Miracles, the one that says, problems are meaningless, but don't tell that to somebody who's in the middle of one. Because when we're in the middle of our problem, we hold that it's something that's permanent and real. It's not. And so to walk back through and to undo, to forgive all of those dynamics is the purpose of this work. Jeannie.
Yeah, so another comment going on in the chat room is that a rager needs some, like if rage and hostility is a drug to cover pain. And so if they felt their pain, they would feel like they were weak. And so by being angry or hostile, they feel more powerful because they can make someone else feel afraid or weak instead of looking at themselves. If there was no one out there for them to rage at, is it true they would either have to look inside and deal with the pain that's underneath their rage, or they would move to another kind of a drug because there would be nobody else to be angry with for that drug to work for them?
Absolutely. And, you know, once a reality is built into a mind, until it's collapsed, until that reality and that mind is collapsed and forgiveness is applied, that mind will forever create scenarios, real or imagined, that make it logical to play out the dynamics of the power person. And this is where interdependence comes in. And again, by collapsing that hostility and fear, which is totally false, the false self, by collapsing it through forgiveness, then everything begins to shift and change. You bring the active presence of love into your mind, into your relationships. And as you do that, you get to play a whole different game. You get to play the interdependent game. And the interdependent game is an awesome game to play. Because what happens is you get to heal. You get to heal all the parts of you that hold any form of hostility or fear. You get to work through them. And as you do, things shift and change. So you cancel the goal involved in the relationship, the goal you hold for them or for yourself, and that's another step into interdependence. It's how you clean out the hostility and fear-based mind. And the relationship with them will present the mind an opportunity to work it out and survive one more time. And to end this cycle, we must work it out with our power person, to see them out of non-being and rage, is to hold them and ourselves and anyone we get into relationship with out of being. If you keep them there, you're simply repeating the dynamics of the power person. And when you step into holding that space of love, by doing so, you get to heal that part of you and move into the awesome space of interdependent relationship, which gets to play and have fun without having had to go through drama and trauma to do it. And we're here to support you in that process. We're here to hold the space for you. We're here to answer your questions. We're here to give you the tools. And we're here to create forgiveness for every mind, heart, and being on planet Earth. We are the awesome presence of love. You are the awesome presence of love. You are a divine being made of this stuff called love. And we hold the space for the healing of all of that, so that you get to create the best year yet of your eternal life. That's the space we hold for you. Please invite a stranger to come and be on the show with you tomorrow. We'll look forward to hearing from you. Blessings. Bye-bye.